listening to the Sticks in the Six podcast. Here are your co-hosts, Andrew Forbes, Peter Barricchini, and Alex Hobson.
Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to episode 168 of Sticks in the Six. I'm your host, Andrew Forbes, here with my co-host, Peter Barricchini, and we're going to do a quick afternoon session for you guys on this holiday weekend. We've been off for about a week and a half, but just a few notes for the Maple Leafs as we get into the last month of the off season. Peter, before we get into all that, buddy, how you doing?
Yeah, doing great. Like you said, long weekend, got, some time off right now. But as you mentioned, we wanted to, I can't remember the last time we did a Sunday episode. It's been quite some time. It's been like since the early days that we were actually like getting started off with that, I think, right?
Yeah, it's been a while. It's definitely been a while.
Yeah, it feels weird doing it because it's either like, Wednesday afternoon or evening, but yeah, doing good. Can't complain. Catching up with the Olympics, catching up with a little bit of, the summer sports. So Canada's really doing great at this point, and I just want to give a big shout out to you, man. Big happy belated birthday to you. So hope you had a great day, and hope everything went smoothly.
Yeah, 36, man. It's as we said before we kicked it off here, not getting any easier. Not really the big 4-0 yet, but we're closing in on that back nine of the 30s. So I just spent some time with the family, went out, had a couple beers, and the way that I celebrate, just enjoy, relax, and get it done. But yeah,
perfect recipe right there.
That's right. Lots of sports happening right now in terms of the Olympics. Canada's obviously doing great. First time I believe Canada's had a swimmer record 3 gold medals in one single Olympics.
Yeah.
So big shout out to Summer McIntosh.
Summer.
Have you seen the memes where it's like Summer McIntosh and then they throw a toque on her and they say Winter McIntosh?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
somebody's like, I need to see fall and spring as well.
Spring, get all the seasons going.
That's right. But we got a little bit to talk about before we get into that. This podcast, as well as the Hockey Podcast Network, is brought to you by BetterHelp. When, especially for somebody like myself, when your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. I haven't benefited by using BetterHelp. I have used other forms of therapy in the past, and it certainly has helped me get through some of the maybe roadblocks in life. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day. With BetterHelp, visit betterhelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. And that's as much important as we get into the winter months. It kind of gets dreary outside. You get all the rain and the snow. You're cooped up. If you need some help, don't hesitate to call BetterHelp or reach out betterhelp.com/THPN for 10% off your first month. But we are in the heat of the summer, the dog days of hockey season. We're in the last little bit here. We're the home stretch before we get into preseason. And Peter, we got a little bit of Leafs news. But before we get into that, I want to talk about the Brock Faber signing.
Yeah,
you put it in our notes because it's a big extension, obviously, and it kind of ties back to this whole idea of what Kyle Dubas said was his biggest regret in his time with the Maple Leafs, and that was locking up his core. And we all know Brock Faber, what a player he is. He almost dethroned Connor Bedard as the Calder candidate last season, and now he's locked up and he's a key part of the future there in Minnesota. So what are your thoughts on the Brock Faber, how it ties into Kyle Dubas's biggest mistake in as a Maple Leafs GM, and what others can maybe learn from this?
Yeah, and that was a big thing too, because when you talk about it, it's almost as if, that's a main reason why I brought that in there, is because it ties into that big mistake of him not locking up the core, making them a priority. And when you have those young budding stars coming up, you want to make them the priority. You want to make them the face of the franchise, which they already were, but those contracts are going to be very critical. And we're starting to see that right now with all these other big name players getting long-term extensions. Miro Heiskanen was one of them. Del McCarr was another, although he wasn't an 8-year deal, it was still 6 years, but you locked him up for a good chunk of his career with the Avalanche. And now the Wild do the same with Faber. I believe he's at 8 years, 68 million, 8 million per, if I'm not mistaken, 8.5 million per is the AAV. So that to me is great value after only basically one NHL season of work. But we talk about being wary of giving players that kind of, massive extension, where we've seen players not have good, first 1-2 seasons, and then they get a big extension not warranted of that. But Brock Faber's on a different level. This dude is an absolute beast. I mean, when you look at the numbers that he had last season alone, he led all rookies in time on ice per game, literally almost 25 minutes per game. Like, that is absolutely insane and unheard of, that he's able to get all those opportunities, 5-on-5, power play, penalty kill. It was absolutely insane. And he was second in points, tied with Luke Hughes, behind only Connor Bedard, 47. And, there's always this talk about, could have won the Calder? Absolutely. But if he would have hit that 50-point mark, you could obviously make that argument that he was well worth it, more so than Connor Bedard. And that's not to throw or diminish what Connor Bedard did. Again, Wild were kind of a bit of a better team. Chicago Blackhawks were way towards below the end, the bottom of the standings, and Bedard still stood tall as a result of that. But when you have a defenseman that has the capability of being a strong offensive producer, being smart defensively, that two-way threat, you got to lock him up long term. And the Wild and Guerin did just that. Again, going back to the whole Leafs thing, you want to make sure that they're the priority. They're the face of the franchise. And the fact that it goes back to that was the main thing that I thought of. I'm like, well, Dubas wasn't quick enough to getting Matthews, Nylander, and all of them locked up. Probably should have been a little bit more of an incentive to have, maybe 1 or 2 years under their belt. Yeah, great. But you know what? They want that security. They're going to be the players that are going to be synonymous with this franchise. The fact that, again, not to put John Tavares out of the equation of this, not to say that he wasn't important, but prioritize a veteran that already established himself. I know you wanted to make that big move. I know you wanted to get it done, but the focal point should have been on your core 3 players at that point. And I know we alluded to last week that it probably seemed like Tavares wouldn't have signed anywhere else. If it was Toronto or nothing, you could have waited another week or 2 or so to try and get everything locked in with your 3 players, as opposed to just making Tavares a priority and then the other 3 following afterwards. But I mean, yeah, it was the main thing. Any rookie star player that's coming up, even the Yaroslav Koski thing, yeah, maybe still a little bit of a hesitancy to give him that kind of money, but he took a big step forward. He deserved that contract. You're paying for what you're going to get in the future, and he's going to be a big-time power forward. So it's like seeing all these young players being prioritized kind of goes back to Dubas not prioritizing the players.
I think you have to look at it. This is the new NHL, right? It's pay for what you think they can do rather than pay for what you've already gotten, and you see it right across the board. You mentioned a bunch of players that have signed long-term deals prior to maybe showcasing their full ability, and I mean that's saying that with Faber having scored 8 goals, 47 points in 82 games in his rookie season. Any other year, Bedard's not there. I think this guy's right there in the Calder mix. But it's just the way that the league is trending, and that means that, you know, guys like Faber, they're going to get those deals prior to maybe having their coming out campaign, and really that's, you know, we talked about it a few weeks back where, you know, Dubas kind of made a similar mistake going into Pittsburgh and making that big deal and getting Erik Karlsson, and then later having to move Jake Gensel just because of where they're going to be with the cap at the end of the season. And I just, you know, I feel like that it was so evident, maybe not at the time, but it was so evident afterwards that, you know, that was the biggest issue, that the priority wasn't placed on the guys like Matthews and Marner and Nylander, making sure you lock them up long term and make sure you had your core, your big defensemen that you could lock up long term. Instead, you went out on the free agent market. You signed John Tavares. He kind of, as you mentioned, as you alluded to, there was kind of this expectation that it was going to be Toronto or nothing, anyways, for John Tavares, and I think you know, they could have got him for a slightly cheaper deal, given that, you know, he was going to play with this core that they had set up long term. Now, people are going to question, you know, 8 years at 8.5, while you know, in 5 years that's going to be a steal for a guy like Brock Faber. At the same time, this guy is going to be done his contract at 29 years old and be able to sign another long-term deal at probably a higher AAV, with the cap, one, on the rise, and two, having the numbers that he's going to put up over the next several seasons behind him as well. So this is a great deal from both the team and the player perspective when you think of the long-term repercussions of it.
Absolutely, yeah. And you just said that this is going to be a steal 3-4 years down the line in the middle of his contract. Imagine, I hate to bring up Cale Makar again, but Cale Makar at $9 million right now is just an absolute steal for the Colorado Avalanche. You know, Miro Heiskanen is probably a steal for Dallas. This is going to be a steal for the Minnesota Wild, where, the cap's going up, and by the end, it's going to be a hell of a lot worth more than what he is now. And the fact that they took advantage of that after just one season of work, and I have no doubt in my mind that there's going to be any sort of regression for Brock Faber. None whatsoever. I mean, grew up a Minnesota Wild fan, got selected by the Kings, but then traded over in the Kevin Fiala deal. I believe that was the deal. Yeah. So got traded over, and now he's playing for his hometown team. You love to see that. Those are the players that thrive in those kind of situations. And he basically was lights out in his rookie year. There's no doubt in my mind that he's going to surpass that 47-point mark because he's going to get all the opportunities right now. I mean, you don't want to put that kind of expectation on, you know, a young player, but, you know, he's 21 years old. He's had a lot of collegiate experience. He was already a leader then. I wouldn't surprise him to become a leader sooner rather than later with this team. Maybe in another year or two, he's wearing a letter, because this guy is absolutely impactful. And I'm just amazed that they were able to get him for that type of price. And as soon as Brock Faber went over to the Wild, I honestly believed, or I immediately thought, that this is going to be a big win. It's paying off right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I mentioned, you know, 82 games, he played a full season. You mentioned his time on ice, just under 25 minutes. You know, this is a guy who he pumped out 36 shots from the point over that span as well. This guy's going to be a leader on the team. They did exactly what they needed to do in locking him up, and like I said, the long term repercussions of this deal, how it affects some of the other younger defensemen coming into the league, and what they should expect after, you know, if they can have a rookie campaign like him. It's gonna be a determinant in those contracts. So, just a solid contract. I think it does tie back to the whole idea behind, you know, in today's NHL, you need to lock up that core. That's got to be the goal, because if you can lock them up long term early on, it actually pays dividends to the team later on, and we're gonna see that with Minnesota the same way. As you mentioned with Cale Makar's contract, we saw that with Colorado. We're seeing that right now with Colorado, a $9 million defenseman that is probably worth in the $12 million range. And and what he means to that franchise, what he's brought to that franchise. I think it's making more and more sense in that, this is how it's going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I mean, the Leafs are where they are right now. Obviously, the big conversation in this offseason has been Mitch Marner and Yanni Hakanpää, the two storylines that seem to never die. Fortunately for us, we don't really have to talk on that this week because there's not much of an update on either of those storylines. So, that being said, we do have a little bit of Leaf content for you this week. Like I said, we're going to keep this episode short. Everyone's out doing their thing on the long weekend, and obviously we got things to do, places to be as well. So, but with that said, the World Junior Summer Showcase is going on right now. Easton Cowan was almost a given to be there. One of the guys that was a little bit more of a surprise, but made some headway late in last season was Noah Chadwick. And I want to get your take as the prospect guru at the Hockey Writers. Your thoughts on both of these guys, and one, the fact that they're Maple Leaf prospects, but two, the fact that they're taking part in this summer showcase, and what they're maybe some of the attributes that they've been able to showcase in this summer event.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know about Easton Cowan at this point. I mean,
who?
Yeah, exactly. Who is this guy? Basically, we knew that after making the team last year, he's going to be a leader. He's going to be a big factor this time around. So no complaints right there. But yeah, Noah Chadwick was the big surprise this time around because of the fact that he was viewed as this late round pick in 2023. Not much known about him. And then there was when we got to talk to Wes Clark at the end of that draft, he spoke very highly of Chadwick because of some of the qualities that he possessed. And again, everyone's going to always look to the point indicator that it's not that great into production or whatever. Yeah, 20 points in 67 games, first season in the first full season in the WHL. So maybe not enough opportunity, but last year he got the opportunity and he surpassed expectations because of that steady two-way play, being a little bit more engaged offensively. I think there's a very steady presence on that back end in his game and a player that could do a lot more damage offensively than I think he's shown in the past. Mm-hmm. I don't like to draw comparisons to like other players in the league, but this is probably going to be a guy that could probably do it all. Top 4 minutes, not necessarily top pairing, but top 4 guy. If he continues the way that he's going to be, steady defensively, get into those lanes, break up plays, but also be quick in transition. In his draft year, there were times where he picked his spots perfectly to join the offense and he capitalized on it. That's the type of defender that the Maple Leafs have needed and have lacked in the past. Glad that they got him when they did, and to see him on Team Canada right now is just an indication of his development, how far he's come to this point that he's already on Hockey Canada's radar for the big tournament come this January. So if he's able to continue the way that he's going at this pace, having another strong start with Lethbridge, having the season that he's having, if he's able to do that, great. I can't see a future without him being on that roster because he definitely has the potential to be a very steady presence on that back end. And if they're going to have some of the more offensively gifted players from the back end be a key part, but you want to rely heavily on defense, Chadwick is definitely going to be your guy to provide that balance.
Yeah, I mean, how often have we talked about the depth and the lack of depth that the Toronto Maple Leafs have going into this season? And, I'm not saying Noah Chadwick's ready at all. He's not ready to make that jump, but at the same time, you have that within your organization now. Here's a guy who wears a letter in Lethbridge. He's an assistant captain for Lethbridge. At least last season he had 12 goals, 56 points in 66 games. So still adds a little bit of that offensive prowess, but he's a guy that's a big body, 6'4", 193 pounds. He can play the body, he can play defensively, he can cut off the lanes. And we've seen the World Junior Tournament. We know that yes, you need your star-studded players, you need your star-studded lineup to make the goals happen, but how often do you need those third lines to step up late in the game to, cut off some chances and maybe turn things back the other way? Noah Chadwick is a perfect example of what, this team could utilize when it comes to depth and performance and those late game struggles where maybe your Macklin Celebrinis aren't getting it done. Maybe you need a guy like Noah Chadwick to step up. Maybe you need a guy that Easton Cowan was that depth guy before.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have the size. He was that, and that's nothing against Easton Cowan, but now you've got a guy that can maybe play the body a little differently when you go up against Sweden's got a big lineup. Finland's got a big lineup. You need guys with size, the 6'4s, the 6'5s to come in and be able to play that the defensive game. And I think Noah Chadwick kind of gives you that little bit of everything. He's that blue collar type of player where you can go in and he can get you some offensive production, but also can play well in his own end. And I think that's kind of what's being recognized now, and a little bit of a late bloomer. And that's how many times have we commended the Detroit Red Wings for years? They were all about their late round picks. Well, now we're starting to see a little bit of that with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I think that's one of the things that we're going to get with Noah Chadwick as well.
Mm-hmm. And just looking at Flow Hockey TV, because Canada did play US in the final game at the Summer Showcase, lost in a shootout, but based on the roster projections, Chadwick was paired up with Carter Yakupchuk. So obviously Yakupchuk, highly offensive, talented puck mover on that back end. So kind of balances out where you had the steady presence of Chadwick to be there when Yakupchuk's going up, doing those rushes, getting in the offense, because he knows what his place is going to be at that point. So if he's able to continue to maintain that mindset, be that steady two-way presence, I think Chadwick definitely has a good possibility that he could make the team. I do think that when we saw the list of players be selected for this 48-man roster for the Summer Showcase, maybe some were surprised because they maybe haven't really given Chadwick a chance. But when you watch him play, you can see the big strides in development that he took from last season to this season. And it's indicative of that, because when I came out with my top 10 Leafs prospect, I had him in the eighth spot. Maybe probably could have had him a little bit higher, because I had Hildeby and Akhtiamov just slightly above, because goaltending is now becoming a big factor with this team right now, where we have two solid defensive prospects. Maybe probably could have had him just in line with Ben Danford, but I really do like what I've seen with Chadwick to this point, because he could be a real late round pick that's going to be very, very valuable for this team.
And the Leafs have him signed to his entry level contract, so that's worth noting as well. Obviously, with cap friendly gone, Puckpedia is available, so make sure you check them out when you're looking for anything contract wise. Before we get into our next point here, just a quick word from our other sponsors over at DraftKings Sportsbook. We know it as sports fans, but know the beautiful thing about being a sports fan? There's only 2 days the whole year without a game. 2. With so much happening and so much action, that makes just about every day game day at DraftKings Sportsbook. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. It really couldn't be any easier or any simpler. Like we mentioned last week, the Leafs right now are third when it comes to futures to win the Stanley Cup this year. A little bit early for my liking, but as I mentioned, you can also bet on that at DraftKings Sportsbook. And if you are new to DraftKings, you got to check this out. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7937. 877-888-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Deposit and eligibility restrictions apply. See terms and responsible gaming resources at dkng.co/base. Well, Peter, before our final note here, I do want to get into a little bit of fantasy hockey talk. I know you like your fantasy hockey. I've been in the keeper league we're going on 15 years. We have a little giveaway with Dauber Hockey for 10 copies of their complete fantasy hockey guide for the 2024-25 season. So here's everything you need to do. You need to follow Dauber Hockey on X, on whatever. You need to follow us on X at Sticks in the Six Pod. And then you need to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you'll be entered to win one of 10 free copies of the complete 2024-25 Dauber Hockey Fantasy Hockey Guide. I sure as hell need it. I know I haven't finished in the top 3 in the 15 years we've been running this league, so I would love to get any advantage that I can get. So make sure you enter the Sticks in the Six Dauber Hockey giveaway by subscribing on YouTube. Send us a quick message on X or wherever you follow us. Let us know that you subscribed, and we will make sure we enter you into the draw. It's 10 copies. Yeah. Even if there's 10 people that get in, that's a copy for each of you, guaranteed
one. Exactly.
Make sure you do it. We would love to give all 10 copies away this season, and that's, again, brought to you by Dauber Hockey. Peter, last thing before we close it out here, Nylander 2.0. I did a little clip on TikTok, a little short on YouTube as well, and I think that's going to be our little summer segment as we close out the last month of the season. We haven't really decided if we're going to take a couple weeks off before we enter season 5 of Sticks in the Six. Crazy to think that we've come that far, but
yeah.
What if? So Alex Nylander right now is signed to a contract with the Toronto Marlies, an AHL contract. We saw what he did at the tail end of the season with the Columbus Blue Jackets to close out last year, the 2023-24 season. What if he kicks off the season? He is making unbelievable strides at the AHL level, and the Toronto Maple Leafs find a way to get this guy in the lineup with his brother, William Nylander. What are your thoughts on this signing? What are your thoughts on, do we see Alex Nylander in the NHL at some point this season with the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Low risk, high reward kind of situation, right? I mean, it's really tough because he was such a highly skilled player in his draft year, really hasn't quite made the jump or solidified a spot at the NHL level. But when you saw what he did towards the end of last season, that was the first season where he actually had any sort of opportunity to showcase what he can do. Yeah, the defensive game is not that great, not that strong, but 11 goals in 23 games for 15 points. Not that bad. I mean, that's, you look at the numbers that he has, it's kind of similar to Bobby McMahon, where he was going for that kind of Cy Young Award winner type stats or whatever, right? More goals than assists, right? Nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, this contract is something that the Maple Leafs need. You need that depth scoring in that bottom six, because you can't just have those shut down, stay at home type players. You need to get some more offense as a result of that, get that speed going. Nylander brings both. And as you mentioned, like, you know, he's on that AHL contract. I mean, he's coming into camp looking to eye for a spot, looking to battle for one, looking to take something away from one of those veteran players. Well, I mean, I guess you could consider him a veteran player because he already has at least 50 NHL games under his belt. Yeah, 121. So he's already a veteran himself, but hasn't quite stuck. If he comes into camp, plays well, but has to get sent down, starts off well with the Marlies and then gets called back up, great. No issue there. Then he's earned that spot. He's played hard, produced at the AHL level, again, earned that opportunity to call up, and let's see what he could do at the NHL level. Hopefully what happened last season carries over. If he just wins a spot out of camp right away, then so be it. You know, there's really nothing wrong with that. If you need to sign him to that NHL contract, because at this point right now, if I understand, he doesn't require waivers to go up, only to go down at this point. So that is the one main thing where You don't need waivers. It's just for when he's about to be sent down.
It's only if he gets signed to an NHL contract that he would
Yeah.
have to require waivers to go back down to the AHL if they were to move him back down.
Exactly. Yeah. That is the only case right there. But then again, if he comes up and he's playing lights out great hockey, even in a bottom six role, why not keep him on the roster? Why not keep him and get that, third pair or third line going, where if you do have Bobby McMahon and Alex Nylander, you have guys that can bury the puck right away. That's some strong secondary scoring right there. That is something that the Maple Leafs have lacked. And if he gets those minutes and those opportunities, you need those goals. You need that type of player. If he's going to get that and he wins it, and it's based on all the hard work that he did to get to that point, he deserves a spot. There's no doubt about that. I think even if he is off to a hot start in the AHL, you call him up the first chance that you get, because you can't keep a player like that in the minors for so long, because he has shown in a small sample of what he could do in the NHL. And I think that he's going to be very confident heading into this season based on how everything ended last season. And the fact that he's with his brother right now, it not necessarily speaks volumes, but I think it shows that, his brother has faith in him. The team has faith in him that he can go and pop off and be an offensive factor for this team. So we'll see where it goes, but I think this is a signing that needed to happen. You got to have that depth scoring, and he could do just that.
Yeah, one of the comments that I got when I did that little video on TikTok was that this guy's a stiff. He's been with 5 teams. He can't make it, blah, blah, blah. Look, this guy was an 8th overall pick. There's a reason why he was an 8th overall pick. It's the same as like if you go back to like a guy like Neil Yakupov. There's a reason why he was picked where he was. Yeah, he didn't succeed in the situation that he was put in Edmonton, but, it's neither here nor there. When these guys play, it's about a situation. It's about where they feel comfortable. And when you're not getting the reps, when you're not getting the opportunities, when you're not getting the chances, there's no belief in your game. It's very easy to lose that mental confidence. That it's very easy for these players to maybe not feel the way that they should feel in going into an NHL game. And you need it to play at that level. You need a sort of not cockiness, but a confidence that your average Joe wouldn't have, right? So now you've got Alex Nylander, who, let's look at his stats, his career stats for a second. 49 points, 25 goals, 49 points in 121 games. Last season, he finished with 15 points in 28 games. This guy's averaging nearly a point every 2 games in his career, right? Sorry, a point every 4 games in his career. Sorry, my math. I wasn't mathing properly there.
It's okay, man. I can't math either.
But the fact that he's able to do that in the limited opportunities that he's had should speak volumes to any organization that was looking to bring him in. He's not going to be a top line guy like he was expected to be when he was drafted 8th overall. It's simple.
It happens.
Can he be a middle 6 guy? 1,000%. And the opportunity that he was given with Columbus last season, we saw a little bit more of what he's able to provide. Last season, 15 points in 28 games, better than a point every 2 games, right? So you've seen him now get that opportunity. All of a sudden, his offensive production has gone up, and he's looking like a guy that can play on your third line. Now add to that you're with your brother in a city that thrives on the game, and you get to have that kind of family connection because he's literally right there. Like they're both in Toronto. It's not like the AHL organization is, in another city. Like they are right there together. All of a sudden you've got that family confidence. You've got that ability to hang out with your brother and really kind of get your footing back underneath you where you were when you were this phenom that was coming up and you were going to be the 8th overall pick. Now, all of a sudden, there's a little bit more comfort to your game. And I think, I truly believe that we will see him in the NHL. I truly believe that we're going to see a different Alex Nylander. And you said it right off the top. This is a low-risk, high-reward signing that could really pan out. And worst-case scenario, he doesn't do well, so be it. You leave
just
him in
stays in the
AHL.
minors. Yeah.
you could also turn this around. If he has a great start to the season, maybe he becomes an asset that you can move at the deadline. On top of that, and this is where I'm curious as to see how this goes. Last season they had Kiefer Bellows. I wanted to sign Kiefer Bellows so bad.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted the Leafs to sign this guy so bad, bring him up and have him play this season, because there's your depth right there that you needed. And he had an unreal season,
monster season.
This is the opportunity for Alex Nylander to be your 2024-25 version of Kiefer Bellows.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're gonna see a lot of potential here. You just saw the Marlies re-sign Kyle Clifford. There's guys there to protect him. Now he can go out and play his game. So I personally love it. I think we see him at the NHL level. And I'd love to see a line with Matthews and the two Nylanders. I just give me one game with that and I'd be happy. But I think there's a lot of potential here, and I love the signing. We talked about it last week with Spencer as well, that he was a guy that was a PTO possibility, a guy that they could go out and get, and there you have it. He's right almost right away. The outside insiders strike again. So. I personally love it. I think it's a good talking point for the season. I think it'll give Alex Nylander a chance to kind of get comfort back into his game.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I just one more point about Kiefer Bellows. I was with you as well. Like, I even went to a Marlies game in March, and I was absolutely enthralled with the way that he played. Like, he was just dominant every single time he stepped onto the ice.
Good.
Yeah. It seemed like he was getting his confidence back, and he deserved that opportunity. And now he has that opportunity to possibly thrive with the Nashville Predators. I mean, whether it's at the AHL level or he gets called to the NHL, I'm just surprised that they didn't give him one of those opportunities, because of the powerful shot and the physicality that he could bring. He would have been an ideal third or fourth liner right there.
What an ad, though, for the Nashville Predators, along with their offseason moves. You got Ryan O'Reilly last year with Luke Shen last year. Now you've got Stamkos that you brought in.
Still weird, though. Still weird.
I think I gotta go to a game in Nashville this year.
Oh, absolutely, man!
I gotta go see him. I
gotta
go see him in the yellow. Anyways, I don't have anything else. I do have at the Hockey Writers. I do have 3 bold predictions. I wouldn't even call them bold. They're just 3 predictions for the upcoming season. I won't tell you what they are, but they involve Timothy Liljegren, they involve Austin Matthews, and they involve Nick Robertson. So. Check out the Hockey Writers for those 3 predictions. Again, I don't know. Maybe they are bold. I don't know. You be the judge. Anyways, Peter, anything you got going on for the week until we reconvene this coming week?
Yeah, no, I'm just working on something as well. Working on a couple pieces, underrated prospects to watch for the Maple Leafs this season. Unfortunately, I can't say Nikita Grebyankin again because he's already with the team right now, but I still keep an eye on him, as well as players in danger of losing a roster spot. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, as always, check out the rest of the Hockey Podcast Network. They've got a ton of hockey shows. Big shout out to DraftKings as well as BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Don't be afraid to make the call and just help pass those roadblocks in life. As well, check out SeatGeek for any tickets you want this season. Remember, there's always sports going on. Football's getting underway again soon. Make sure you check out SeatGeek. Use code STICKSINTHE6 to get $20 off your first purchase. Check out No Name Hockey. You can create your own shaft however you want for your upcoming hockey season as well. All brought to you by the Sticks in the Six podcast. Until next week, Peter, that's all we got. Episode 168 of the show.
You're listening to the Sticks in the Six podcast. Here